FTBL. Today we got a huge Champions League preview in store for you guys. On the bottom, my co-host, CultureCams. Before we get into too much today, how are you doing today, bro?
All good, man. All good. Excited to have Adrian up in here, man. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, first time doing content together. So looking forward to doing more. And yeah, man, let's get into this. Champions League's getting in. It's going to be exciting, man.
Bro, huge blockbuster ties on paper, at least. We're going to talk about each one in specific detail, the main talking points. But again, before we get into today's show, Adrian, the one and only from Rabona TV. If anyone has seen me and Adrian's stuff together, I've been on this channel a few times, but I figured for a European preview, there's only one person to get on for this kind of stuff. He's got a huge array of knowledge when it comes to the European teams, and I thought this was the perfect content to get him on. So Adrian, welcome to FTVL. How you doing today, bro?
I'm doing well. That was a lot of hype. You sound like me talking about Darwin Nunez last season. So we'll see if I deliver or if I'm going to flop like him.
Thanks. You can't flop to that intro. But look, the Champions League this year is a weird one because for the most part, I feel like all of the prestige teams, all the traditional powerhouses that you go into every year and say, these are the favorites, they're all kind of off form at the moment. None of them are really staking their claim as we're the favorites for this competition. In fact, there's two teams that are probably the most informed in Europe. You could argue they don't even play in this competition. They're playing on Thursday. So it's very interesting. The main prestige tie so far that came out of this round of 16, of course, is PSG versus Bayern Munich. PSG are the eternal bridesmaids, it seems, the team that have huge ambitions to win the Champions League. They've dedicated so much of their project and their finances to this competition against Bayern Munich, who it seems every year are in the quarterfinals, semifinals, or finals. Adrian, as someone who's looked at both these teams in close proximity, what's the big thing that you're looking at? Because PSG, I watch them a lot. I don't claim to be a fan, but they throw the enthusiast tag at me. Since the World Cup, are one of the most out-of-form teams in Europe, in my opinion. Bayern Munich, on the other hand, are actually starting to pick up some form as of late. Is this just like going one way and that Bayern will just steamroll this tie, or do you give PSG any hope whatsoever?
First of all, the disrespect on Benfica Brugge as one of the biggest matchups is crazy. But no, I mean, like you said, PSG is that team that they always have that threat because if it clicks, they can kill you. I think all of us thought at the beginning of the season when they brought in Galtier, with the way that they were playing early, Neymar looked fired up, ready for the World Cup. Messi was flying, and Mbappe looked good as well. I think all of us thought, okay, PSG's serious this season. But then following that World Cup, a lot of people thought, is Neymar going to be as into it? Is Messi going to be as into it? And PSG in general just haven't looked as into it. Meanwhile, you have Bayern, who they had a bit of a bobble or a bit of like weird form going on prior. They come back, they lose Neuer. They signed Sommer, replace him with an incredible shot stopper. And then they get João Cancelo down the right. And all of a sudden, they are looking like the serious team. So for me, PSG is one of the hardest teams to call, man. They're so difficult because, like I said, when they click, they could kill you. But they do kind of feel a little bit unserious compared to Bayern, where you're thinking stability. I mean, they're German, right? Stability. They can always be counted on to play a decent match. Whereas PSG, you don't know what you're going to get. So for me, I'm leaning all the way towards Bayern right now, especially João Cancelo down the right, Alphonso Davies down the left. That's a headache for anybody.
What's not to like, man? What's not to like?
For real.
Yeah, I know you got huge opinions on PSG. I know you more than anyone are very critical and have huge expectations on the project, on the front three, potentially, if you really want to think about it, three of the best players, if not the best three players on the planet on their day. But like Adrian kind of just said, since the World Cup, a lot of teams I feel have kind of taken a step back. That momentum that they perhaps had at the first half of the season has halted since then. But PSG, I think, no more than them. You're seeing Neymar out of form, Mbappe in and out of the team through injury, Messi almost on a World Cup hangover. What you saying about PSG, bro?
Hey, PSG, they don't move me, man. They don't move me. I'm not really in the whole project since PSG have been taken over. You know, even back to the Zlatan days, there's never been a moment where I've said to myself, PSG are winning the Champions League. Do you know what I mean? I've never got that feeling from them. And of course, we've had moments, remontada, the Barcelona situation, which always kind of gives you that vibe where just like some way, somehow, PSG are going to find a way not to win the Champions League, or they're going to bottle it or whatever. So now we get to the 2020, I believe it was, Champions League final against Bayern. Bayern were on fire them times, so I won't be too harsh on them in that particular moment. They were close. But with this not MSN, sorry, with this Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe front three, I just think, of course, they're superstars. We're talking about the best players, but it's just something for me where, despite me seeing some certain link ups between them and stuff, I just don't really still feel that threatened that they are like what MSN were, for example. You know what I mean? As soon as you saw MSN on the pitch, it felt like destruction. Like it's gonna be left, right. It's gonna be problems. But this team, I think you can defend against them well. You can actually defend against them. They're not like unbeatable, you know. And I do think Mbappe is the key man in this team. Simple as that. I think we can say people can say Messi's better, Neymar's better footballer, whatever. But Mbappe for me is the most destructive one and the one that moves defenses the most in this stage of his career at the moment than the other two. But when I look at this team, I just still think they're not living up to the expectations that I expect for a team with that many stars, with that many names, and that much ability on the pitch. I don't know if you lot share the same thing, but I look at some of their players. Neymar, for example, he kind of just got a pass now. It's kind of like people have just give Neymar a pass to do whatever he wants now. Like if he scores, we're going to post it on Twitter because he might do a nice little skill and it's going to go crazy. But then in the real moments, where is Neymar, bro? Where has Neymar been for PSG in the whole time that he's been there? It just kind of feels like, for me, a wasted move. I've said it a lot of times.
Yeah. I know where you sit with Neymar. Me personally, I don't agree completely. I think the last 2 years especially have been Mbappe. He's really taken over this team, in my opinion. But I think it's very easy to forget that Neymar, those first 3 years, when they went to the Champions League final, for example, he was the man. He was the guy winning them games, in my opinion. I sit on this kind of side, and it's a bit ironic because I was a huge advocate for Galtier the first half of the season. I was someone who saw an improvement, at least at the start. And maybe it was just, they didn't like Pochettino and these guys are turning up for someone. But I've been someone that's been of the belief the last few years that PSG drastically lack an identity in the way they play football. You don't really see a style that you associate with PSG. And I think even back to the Laurent Blanc days, you had more of an identity with that team, with your Rabiot, Thiago Motta, Verratti, Matuidi, Ibra, Cavani. You had more of a sense of this is how PSG wants to play. Whereas this team is just give it to the front three almost and pray for a miracle and hope you defend well enough in the back. However, I will say this. I think that, like Adrian said, and Cam, like even you alluded to, when these three are on it, they are practically unstoppable. And they have their days where they are absolutely on it. And I look at Bayern, for as good as they are and as organized as they are, I've always seen Bayern Munich, whether it was under Hansi Flick or whether it's now under Julian Nagelsmann, I think defensively you can absolutely get at them. They don't play as high of a line as they did under Hansi Flick, where at times I said it was kamikaze, suicidal with how high they played. But they still play a drastically high line with Upamecano, who's not the most mobile. You have De Ligt, who's not the most mobile, especially on the half turn. If Neymar and Messi can get that final ball to Mbappe absolutely spot on, like they did a few seasons ago when they knocked out Bayern, I don't think this tie is cut out and dry. I would still make Bayern the favorites, of course, because I think 1 through 11, they have the best squad. But I think those three can hurt anyone on their day, and Bayern for me are just as vulnerable as anyone. Sorry,
John. I just think with what you're saying, on their day they can destroy anybody, which I agree, because look how good they are as players. But as a trio, I've only seen them. Is it the Man City game when Messi whipped it top bins? I think Mbappe scored in that game. That was the only time that I've looked at that front three and been like, do you know what? They just turned it up. They just won it. In a Champions League fixture, like, it's just because they had too much quality there. They went, they did their job by Man City. I was like, okay. But I haven't really seen it much between this front three to be like, on their day, they're just going to win PSG the tie. I haven't seen it enough, in my opinion. I don't know about you guys.
Maybe not. Yeah, go ahead, Adrian.
I mean, I haven't really seen it either. I mean, just looking at their Champions League form, finishing behind Benfica, that shouldn't happen. You know, like as much as I love my club, that really shouldn't happen. And the fact that we kept them at 1-1 in both matches, that an 18-year-old Antonio Silva, who's making his debut in the Champions League, et cetera, is pocketing Mbappe and Neymar. And it's just, it was too easy defensively at times. And I find that just their buildup is way too slow. You know, I've seen them for the last couple of seasons. I went to a match a couple of years ago, and it was just so prodding and slow. They get on the ball, they wait for the rest of the team to catch up to them. And I think that a lot of teams, it gives them a chance to sit back and set up. So barring any brilliance from Messi or Neymar to go on a slaloming run, or Mbappe off the left or what have you, it just doesn't really move me, like Cams was saying. It's too slow for me. it's maybe a few years too late for them, in my opinion. And I think that Bayern is going to be able to handle them. I haven't seen it. Like, look, even to their Ligue 1 form, they're losing to who? Like Stade Rennais. They're losing to Marseille recently, right? And did you guys see that clip of when PSG had the ball in the final minutes against Marseille looking for a goal?
What was Messi doing?
Yeah, it's him and Sergio Ramos playing Jorginho passes, and it's just like, come on, let's move forward. They're really lacking in that. So I think that teams are able to set up and defend against them well these days.
I think potentially you're looking at the end of this PSG project, in my opinion. That might be a huge shout, but I think you look at all of the rumors kind of pointing towards only one way for Neymar, and that's the exit this summer. Today, you're kind of getting the news that Messi may be having a 180 on his decision to re-sign in the club, and he may be leaving. And you see Kylian Mbappe, who every single summer is flirting with Real Madrid. I think the way this football club is going with Marquinhos and Verratti and Kimpembe, who have really been the staples of this team, they're on a decline. I could definitely see it. And then finally, the last point is Qatar. There's always been those rumors that they're looking to sell the club. Now you're hearing, although it's a different group, I still believe they're all affiliated with each other. A Qatari investor may be looking to buy Manchester United. I really think that you could be slowly seeing the end of this project. And I believe that this tie, if they don't beat Bayern Munich, you could be seeing a very quick end to it. You were saying, Kim?
Yeah, I think as well, like, in terms of their form, you got to think, like when you think about it, really, like Messi won the World Cup. He hit a mad high, Mbappe hit a crazy high, Neymar hit a really big low. So in a way, these emotions that maybe Neymar, you can say might come with the mentality of, I want to go win this Champions League now because, I didn't get that experience in a way from the World Cup. But these emotions, they're such huge emotions, whether it's negative or whether it's positive, that it could have had an effect on these guys. Do you know what I mean? Because look, Mbappe, how are you going to feel better than scoring a World Cup hat trick? I know you, and then you lost. Okay, whatever. But the peak feeling of a World Cup final hat trick, you're not gonna, bro. That adrenaline, that drug is too much. And then Messi, of course, he got to the point where everyone has literally said, "You're the GOAT officially." Like, no matter what, there's not even a debate. Don't mention any other name anymore. Your career is finished. You've completed the game. Are Messi and Mbappe, for example, playing with that chip on their shoulder anymore? Are they playing with that, we need to go and do this? They just displayed their talents to the world stage, head to head in front of everybody. Done story. We know Mbappe's next up for the Ballon d'Ors and stuff. We know Messi's the confirmed GOAT. Do they really need that? Do they have that motivation? Do they have that motivation to still now say, we want to deliver it to Paris, the Champions League? I'm not too sure.
What are your thoughts on that, Adrian? Agree or disagree?
I agree. I think that as much as people want to deny it, I think that PSG for Messi was warm up to the World Cup. I think that Neymar was treating PSG like warm up to the World Cup prior, because I mean, I think you guys even covered it on your channel, like how much this World Cup meant for Neymar, that line of kings, as they called it in one of that documentaries. So it just feels like nothing's really working there anymore. And also there's just a sense of aggravation from the top down. You always hear stories about how Qatar's angry with the performances, which leads to Nasser fighting with journalists and stuff like that. Then you have Luis Campos apparently arguing with Marquinhos and Neymar about how there wasn't enough intensity in their last game. Blah, 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 blah. Now you have stories coming out about them maybe wanting to get rid of Neymar at the end of the season. I don't know if that's just, self-sabotage from journalists in Paris, because that seems to happen a lot. These stories always come out around important matches for them, or if it's real, but it's if there's smoke, there's fire probably. And it seems like every year we're hearing about just unhappy owners, unhappy Nasser. It's a club that feels like it's almost doomed to fail from the beginning every single time because of the conditions of that club.
I definitely, as you meant, just to back what you said, Lies, I definitely think it's the end of the cycle, especially if they don't win it this year. Win or lose, I think it's coming to the end. Like, there's a lot of talk about Messi maybe going to America, but there's also talk about him staying on, so we're not really sure where his head's at the moment. There's talks about, listen, Neymar experiment, Neymar journey is coming to an end, mate. I think if they could, they would have moved him on last year as well. I personally think that. So I think this is the end of the road for him too. And then, again, you're never going to get away from the talks about Mbappe and Real Madrid, or Mbappe just moving on in general. So we got 3 uncertain futures there, and we're just talking about the front 3. We're not even talking about the midfield or anything like that, because of course all the attention is going to be on the front 3. But it is looking like it is the last ride for this front 3.
On the subject of Bayern, sorry guys to make this like a long one, but really this is the prestige tie of this tournament. So we are going to look at this one the most, I would say. We did get a question for you, Adrian, on Bayern and what your thoughts are on them basically playing with 1 midfielder and 5 attacker in Bundesliga games. We know of Nagelsmann anyways, it tends to be his style and that he plays this unorthodox style of play. I used to always call him the Cam. He's like a mad scientist for me, and that he has these crazy, in theory, genius ideas, but sometimes he's so extreme with them that they almost blow up in his face. But what do you think about this? Again, I almost say kamikaze style of football.
Look, it's either gonna hit or it's not, right? And yeah, he is sort of, that's a good way of putting it, this mad scientist. He just does weird stuff. It doesn't work. It wasn't really working that well at the beginning of the season. We saw Bayern sort of stumbling a little bit in the Bundesliga. I mean, Union was leading forever until like, what was it, October, November or something like that, until everyone caught up and surpassed them. I think that Nagelsmann is one of those managers that's still figuring stuff out. You know, I think that he's just sort of given the license to experiment at Bayern, where maybe that's not always welcome because it can come at the cost of them dropping points or losing games or something like that. But I think the question was pertaining to in the Bundesliga. I think he can afford to do that in the Bundesliga, but I wouldn't expect to see him doing that against PSG when his midfield's coming up against Verratti, et cetera, et cetera. I think that he'll play a little bit more subdued Nagelsmann rather than these sort of mad ideas that he can get away with in the Bundesliga.
Fair enough. So if we're all to look at this tie as a totality and predict the winner, we are going to take one winner from all of these, give our own predictions. Adrian, you predict Bayern Munich to win this Champions League tie?
Yeah. I got Bayern. They're just too stable versus the instability of PSG at the moment.
Cam?
It's a tough one, man. It's a tough one because I'll be honest, not really too moved by Bayern Munich either. I'll be very, very honest. It doesn't feel like the scary Bayern Munichs of some of the teams that we've seen in the past. This the experimenting, as you mentioned, with Nagelsmann. I'm not really sure. It's tough, man. It's actually really tough. The backline of Bayern Munich is not. I don't know. You know what? Because
oh my god, I thought you were gonna do. Let me just tell Adrian. This guy put so much pressure on Messi to win the World Cup that he picked Argentina to win it. It ended up being true, but he just wanted to see him crash and burn.
Bro, because you know what? Because they have Messi and they have, you know what I mean? And they have Mbappe, and now I'm going to go with PSG because they have to. You know what I mean? They have to do it. So I think the incentive is more for them than it is for Bayern Munich, you know? So yeah, because PSG have to and they must do it. Remember, that's the key word. They must do it. I'm going to go PSG. Messi, come on, they got Messi. You the GOAT, right? You can do it, surely.
Look, man.
Surely.
I hate this guy, man. Yo, I said at the beginning of the season to you, Cam, there were only 2 teams that I believed could beat or that would beat PSG in a 2-legged tie. And if you remember, it was Real Madrid and it was Manchester City. Bayern Munich were not one of those teams. So to be fair and to stick with my prediction, I will say that PSG wins this tie, but it's a lot based on what I said 6 months ago. Right now, I am feeling too good about PSG, man.
It's just about integrity.
Yeah, it's just about pride and integrity at this point. I got PSG winning this over 2 legs, but just barely winning it. The next tie that we got is something that I like to call, Adrian, harassment versus harassment. I call it mid versus mid. Tottenham Hotspur against AC Milan. 2 teams that entered the season with massive expectations. In fact, Cam, you made a Champions League preview on these 2 teams in particular. You had 5 teams to watch out for, and Spurs with Antonio Conte was one of them, and AC Milan was another one of them. And again, they entered the season with huge expectations. Milan just coming off winning their first Scudetto in 10 years. Spurs coming off the top 4. That second half of the season was excellent. They made some big signings. Yet we're in February now, and Spurs are 5th, 7 points behind 4th. 7 points behind 4th. Injured, Kroc, their biggest player is not performing in Son. And Milan, right? Guys, make sure to definitely watch the video Adrian just did on Rabona TV about AC Milan, because their decline from 12 months ago is one of the most astounding in Europe. Big players not performing like they were 12 months ago. Injuries in huge positions like Mike Maignan in goal. This is, like I said, it's harassment versus harassment. It's just two teams in absolutely dire form. Who comes out of this alive?
It's a mid-off, like you said, man. It's terrible. I mean, I had some optimism for Tottenham. And then you see them lose 4-1 against Leicester, got baptized by Leicester. And then you also factor in the Conte tax in the Champions League. And it's like, what was I thinking backing them against AC Milan? But then you have AC Milan, who, like you said, horrible. They had a terrible market where, they're changing hands of ownership over the summer. So they didn't really get any investing done until like the last day of the market, basically. They didn't do anything in January. They have a ton of injuries, like you said. Mike Maignan versus Tatarusanu in goal is just like a horrible thing. Tatarusanu, I think, is statistically the worst keeper in Serie A, which is not befitting of a team like AC Milan. You have an old Giroud, who I think we all have love for Olivier Giroud in attack, but when he's leading the line and Pioli's trying to play counter-attacking, it's just not going to work. So look, I think that they finally made a change to play a back three so they can at least defend a little bit and provide some cover for Tatarusanu in goal. But this is looking like it's going to be either A, a horrible watch if you want to look at it as far as the quality of football, or B, there'll be tons of goals because neither of these teams. I saw Eric Dyer playing like a bodyguard to the Leicester City attackers this weekend. And then you couple that with Tatarusanu in goal, where you can hit 10 shots at him and you'll score 8. I mean, it's gonna be wild. I don't know what to expect from this one. It's chaos.
Here's the thing, though, right? I always say this about the Champions League. I believe that stars decide Champions Leagues. They decide individual games. They ultimately decide where the trophy ends up going to. And you look in Spurs' corner, their star has turned up this year. No matter how poorly Spurs have played this year, Kane has been held accountable. He's scored goals. He's carried this team as far as I'm concerned. But you look over on the other side, the reigning MVP of the Serie A, a player that I'm going to go to CultureCams in a few seconds, has had a pretty big decline. And Adrian, I want to ask you about him before I go to Cams, because I know you're Portuguese. I'm sure you have stocks involved in this guy. I'm sure last season was terrific for you watching him. But what's happened to Rafa Leao in 12 months?
I don't know, man. I mean, look, he was pretty decent prior to the World Cup, but I think that with Milan's decline comes his decline as well. Last season, it was working for him because they were on the counter. They had a better midfield as well with Kessié in there. I think the loss of Kessié has been huge for their midfield. Then I think now they have Tonali and Benacer playing super deep. Neither of those players want to be playing deep. They want to be further out the pitch, helping with that attack. It's just been bad in general for him. And I think that he's lost some confidence, maybe, especially after the World Cup, where he thought he would have more of a role and Santos didn't really give it to him. And now he got benched against Inter in the derby recently as well, which was just sort of nonsensical thinking on some respects. But I think it's just been a slow decline. And maybe teams have figured him out. This loss of form for AC Milan has been really, really bad for him. Look, I don't even have an answer for you. I can't answer. It's just beyond just like a bad decline for him. Maybe he was playing out of his or above his ability a little bit last season, just a little bit. I still think that he has all those raw components with the pace. He's decent with the cross, but look, those stocks are definitely down. Like you said, I'm looking to sell on at this moment.
Wow. And Cam, you haven't been able to stop smiling the last minute or two, bro. Talk to me, man. Talk to me about wrap up.
Look, the thing is, I'm not even a hater on Rafael Leao, right?
Don't do that.
I'm not a hater on Rafael Leao, but the thing is, I don't like it. I don't like when people are crowned too early. That's what I don't like, and people are too quick to already start saying he's the next £100 million player and this and that. And when I looked at his ability, I think he's got ability, but there's still a lot of side of his game where it just doesn't look refined to me. Don't think he's got the greatest touch. I don't think he's a good dribbler. He is a good dribbler, but just all round, I don't think he's as good as people are making out. Now, does that mean he's a bad player? No, I don't think he's a bad player. But this new £100 million signing, maybe because money, you look at Mudryk and all these guys, is going for ridiculous money now. So maybe you can say that, but overall, I just thought he was a little bit overrated and overhyped, should I say. And I'm not surprised at this dip of form, honestly. I'm really not surprised at this dip of form. Sometimes you just know these type of things are going to come, but it's about how you overcome it. Because at the same time, this is probably the first time since he's caught that flame, that it's gone down now, you know? So now he's going to need to show people that he can bounce back from it and start to deliver. And look, nothing against the league or anything like that, but I feel like with his attributes, he could make that league look like baby food. You know what I mean? The speed that he has, the power that he has. I think if it was in the Premier League, it would be a little bit different. But in Italy, as I said, he was doing nice, he was doing well, but it just wasn't to the extent where I think to myself, he's gonna be like some revolutionary winger of this generation or anything like that. Now, of course, you could be wrong, but not wishing on his downfall or anything like that. But I gotta say, he got to turn up in this fixture. Yeah, I mean, it's a Champions League. This is where your stocks rise. This is where people talk about you in greater terms when you deliver in the Champions League. So he really, really needs to turn up, because I'm looking at the AC Milan while you guys are talking. I'm looking at AC Milan's last few results. They're getting battered 4-0s, 5-2s, 4. They're getting wiped out, man. Like literally, like they're getting wiped out. So I'm not excited about the game in terms of the quality, as Adrian said, in any way. But to be honest, when you get two bad teams against each other sometimes, you might get a 4-4 out here, you know. Honestly, you might get some fireworks. So Leao is going to be going up against who? Emerson Royale potentially, or is Pedro Porro going to be available?
Yeah.
Or Pedro Porro. You should be getting some change out of them, man. You should be getting some change. So he is my one to watch in this tie.
I was going to say, are you going to bring out the M word?
No. You know what? I'll leave him. I'll leave him alone for now, man. He's going for a down moment. I don't kick dogs when they're down, you know.
You just kicked them down first. Adrian, if you didn't know, Cam entered the World Cup with one demand for Rafael Leao, and that he must make the World Cup team of the tournament. And evidently he didn't make it, so...
I mean, that's asking a lot, especially under Fernando Santos. But he did not deliver on that. He's one of those players as well. I always think of him like he's a Chelsea signing, because he's yet another one of those dudes that doesn't know what position they are. He's a striker turned winger. He likes to go back and forth between the two. I think that maybe, there's a lot of questions of how Pioli wants to construct their attack. There's also a lot of questions about whether he'll even re-sign with AC Milan. I think his contract's up at the end of the season, or maybe the end of next season. I'm not sure. Yeah, so I think that there's just a lot of mystery, a lot of fog around Rafael Leao right now, and the team in general is doing poor. So it's tough to shine when everyone's, like you were saying, Cam, getting beat 4-0 by Lazio, 5-2 at home to Sassuolo. Like, what are we talking about?
It's smoked, man.
The thing about it, like with this profile of player, is that like when these guys are like stars in a team in Italy that maybe are not Italy, but like other leagues, like that's not the Premier League, or you're not playing for Barcelona, Real Madrid or something, I feel like once the links start coming and everyone starts saying, oh, he's too good for that league. He's too good. This person's too... Same thing with Mudryk. They're too good. They get their head turned a little bit too quickly. You know what I mean? And then maybe they start to believe in their hype, believe in it. And the next thing you know, your form has just completely dropped and gone to the wayside. And then all of a sudden, nobody really wants you. So one thing, he just got to keep going, still performing. Because if he's still producing in this team, where they're having a poor moments, everyone's going to be lining up to go to pick him up and take him. You know what I mean? I would say his attributes do suit most leagues. As long as you can, in this day and age, you've got explosiveness, you've got athleticism, you've got some power, you've got some pace about you. I know those them buzzwords, but that's all you need nowadays. In this, I'm telling you, that's all you need nowadays. So let's see how he gets on though. But Spurs, I think Spurs could still win this tie, But
I'm gonna use a must word for you, Cam. I'm about to use that must word, because for me, I'm gonna bring up the comment right here. I've had it start and I've been waiting to pull it out. Antonio Conte's Champions League record throughout 36 matches, 13 wins, 11 draws, 12 losses, and the biggest stat is that the only time he has ever progressed from the round of 16 in this competition was back in 2012. Where he won against Celtic away and won against Celtic at home. That's the only time he's ever won a knockout game in this competition. For a manager that so many are desperate to throw the world-class tag on, that's unacceptable. And you look at this Milan team in the form that they're in, granted, Spurs are not lighting the world up either themselves, but Spurs hired this man for two reasons. Bring back European nights to White Hart Lane and win trophies. It doesn't look like he's going to do the last one. So he must bring if you guys remember the last time Spurs played AC Milan in the Champions League, in fact, the only other one, back in 2011, Peter Crouch scoring, Gattuso squaring up with the assistant. It was a blockbuster.
Legendary.
Yeah, I need to see Spurs turn up like that this week, bro, because Milan is not some crazy team to be parking the bus and hoping for a Kane miracle. I need to see Spurs turn up, bro. I need to.
I mean, with their injuries now, midfield that's potentially going to be what, Højbjerg and Skip potentially. Højbjerg and Skip, mate.
No
we're going to be seeing Kane pick up the ball from centre half this game, bro. Not even defend. You know, we say 10 now. He's going to be picking it up from the goalkeeper. Honestly, it's Fraser Forster in goal, Tanganga. It's spooky, man. AC Milan need to be sniffing blood here because where is it? Is it
where's the first game? At the San Siro.
The first game's at the San Siro.
Yeah.
I think in the second leg, just no matter what, Spurs will probably be jumping for the second leg. You know what I mean? That's just the way it is. Champions League night back. But the first leg, AC Milan need to be taking care of business, man. They really do. They really do.
100%. So if I were to ask both of you guys a prediction for this tie, Adrian, I'll go to you first.
I think that just based off of the defensive issues that AC Milan have had lately and the fact that Tatarusanu is playing dodgeball in goal.
He's a hologram, bro.
Yeah, he's a hologram. He's playing dodgeball.
He's a 4-star.
Yeah, it's not much better.
Where's mid, bro? I'm telling you.
Yeah, I know. They have a counter to everything. But I think just based on the attack that Tottenham has, they should be able to get at that back line and the midfield, frankly, for AC Milan. So I'm going to go with Tottenham, even though I should have zero faith in Spurs, especially with Conte at the helm. In the European competitions, I should say.
I was going to say, I don't know if you guys see Højbjerg is also suspended. So Spurs will be without Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, Bissouma, and Bentancur.
So who's playing? Sarr. They're going to have to play Sarr and
Skip versus Benacer and Tonali, who, despite how bad Milan have been, I would still say it's a very solid midfield right there.
Crazy. Do you know what? Both teams, it's hard to see. You know what I mean? I could be like English bias and say a Spurs, you know what I mean? But because of the front three, maybe. But that lineup, man, is too spooky, bro. I've got to go AC Milan. You know, I was Spurs the whole way. As soon as I saw the tie, I said, "Oh, Spurs are gonna do it." But sorry, we're here now. I've got to switch it to AC Milan. There's no way AC Milan cannot get a win. It's quite comfortably in that first leg. They should be. They really should be. So I'm gonna go AC Milan, man.
I'd like to see Milan win this. You know how I feel about Spurs. And you know what? I actually believe that Milan will actually win this tie. Just because, bro, Fraser Forster. I saw a rumor today that they were trying to tempt Ben Foster out of retirement, bro. That guy does YouTube videos on Goldbridge these days, bro. They want to play Champions League against Milan.
Oh my god.
With the YouTuber in goal.
Facts. I got Milan going through, man. So that's that for that tie. The next one. And guys, again,
that's a crazy tie, man.
The blockbuster
Barcelona, Man United
in Europa League. Crazy. But guys, the blockbuster ties just keep coming because the next one we're going to talk about is Liverpool versus Real Madrid. Again, I say blockbuster, I purely mean the names of both teams because you look at both these sides, and one of them more particularly after the World Cup, the other one the entire season, they have flattered to deceive massively. We can start with Real Madrid, obviously the reigning champions, the holders, the former La Liga champions as well. And since the World Cup, they're one of those teams that have really been hurt, in my opinion. Maybe that tournament just killed their momentum because they looked really strong that first half of the season. The group stage, they were terrific. I think at one point they had the least goals conceded in Europe. But since then, obviously Benzema has struggled with injury. I think Vinny has had a difficult season compared to the last one. And already for me, this was a team that last year massively relied on individual brilliance, especially from those two that I just mentioned. And when those two drop off, I believe that you're seeing an aging team with holes in the squad. Carvajal, for me, is no longer the same right back that he was a few seasons ago, despite how good he was in the final last year. Ferland Mendy, for me, he's a liability, in my opinion, as far as I'm concerned. That might be a hot take for some of you guys, but I think Ferland Mendy is an average left back.
He's not playing, though.
What do you say?
I don't think he's going to be playing. I think it's Camavinga that's been at left back lately, no?
There you go. I've even seen rumors of Alaba playing left back, but I think Ferland Mendy is a liability there. I think Modric is starting to show his age a little bit. Although Cruz next to him has been absolutely exceptional this year. Rodrigo, to be fair to him as well, has really taken a step up, while Vinicius maybe has stagnated a bit from last year. All in all, though, I've had question marks about Real Madrid since the World Cup, particularly with Ancelotti, and it does look like this could be his last year at the helm. Now, on the other side is possibly the most shambolic team left in this tournament on given form, bro. Liverpool, I don't know where you can even find a positive light to look at them in any way. It's not even like back in 2021 where the team was awful, but Salah was still scoring goals. It's hard to find any bright light about this Liverpool team right now. Defensively, they're leaky. Set pieces, you can kill them. In front of goal, they have guys misfiring left, right, and center. The midfield is absent. The press is dead. But then again, at the back of our heads, we still think about Anfield nights in the Champions League. Can they get a result? Can they shock the world? The first leg will be at Anfield. Adrian, what are you thinking?
I don't know if there's going to be that magic of the night, to be honest with you. I feel like Real Madrid have been in some poor form. I mean, it's weird seeing Dani Ceballos playing so regularly for them these days, a guy who we all forgot about, and he's been playing well. Yeah, he's been playing well. Like you said, so much of their success last season was built upon that duo of Benzema and Vinicius. You have Benzema with injuries. You have Vinicius losing a little bit of form here and there. And even though his general play has been pretty solid, it's the finishing that has seemed to lose him again. Or evade him, I should say. I think that Real Madrid still, though, for me, even this version of Real Madrid, you want to talk about the magic of Anfield, you got to talk about the magic of Real Madrid in this competition in general. Even if they're in terrible form, it seems like they always find a way. There's like a horseshoe up their ass that just gets them through against Man City, against whoever. Against PSG was the other crazy one last season, right? So, yeah, I think that going to Anfield I feel like teams aren't really scared of Anfield anymore, at least domestically. That's what we've seen recently. And we saw what Napoli did. Although I think Napoli lost the second match against Liverpool, didn't they? At Anfield.
Players, to be fair, though.
That's it. So I think, Real Madrid just coming off of that big win against Al Hilal, coming in with tons of confidence. I think that's, for me, I think that they'll have enough to get it done against Liverpool, because Liverpool, I don't even recognize this team anymore. I think Jota and Luis Diaz are due back for maybe the second leg. Maybe. I think that's the last that I heard. But if Real Madrid get a decent result at Anfield, this tie's over for me.
Cam, you give any hope to Liverpool?
It's crazy because, every single year, Liverpool are always kind of like my banker guess to win the Champions League or to get to the final. I always say, oh yeah, Liverpool. And most of the time, it's nearly been right. They've been to 3 Champions League finals in the last 6 years, I believe it was. So, but this is not the same Liverpool. Heritage or not, there's times where now you're starting to think, even Anfield is looking dry and stuff. And I know they'll get up for it in the Champions League, because Liverpool are now going to use this as the only way to get back into the Champions League next season. Real Madrid know they're going to be there. Real Madrid are the holders. So, we know Perez is going to shake it up in the summer. No problem. But Liverpool is kind of do or die. Imagine they go out in this last 16. Their season's finished. It is finished. They might as well start playing the youngers, because the season's over, bro. You know what I mean? So it's a very, very weird one. But I've got to go for Real Madrid. You know what I mean? Because as much as Real Madrid are not playing at the highest standard that we expect Real Madrid to, I still believe they get up for Champions League nights, though. They get up for this. They live for this. If Barcelona are going to go and win the Champions League, the league, they're going to want to say, oh, yeah, you guys win that, but we're still the kings of Europe. You know what I mean? This is what we do. So we've seen them do that numerous times. How many of the Ronaldo ones were even with the league winning seasons? I think it might have even been one. I think it was only one. There we go. So they get up for it. But one thing I would say, though, is Liverpool haven't replicated their league form in the Champions League. And this is why we're going to talk about Napoli later. But I saw Liverpool need a result, and they dispatched Napoli. They needed the result. They got Napoli out of there. Do you know what I mean? So in a way, I'm like, does this heritage kind of maybe kick in? Mo Salah's actually scoring goals to see the top scorer in the Champions League. Okay, 3 of them off the bench against Rangers, like Son did against Leicester that time. But at the same time, this is the only competition they're actually doing well in. So I don't think people are expecting, oh, they just got battered against Brighton. Wait until Real Madrid come along. It's going to be 6-0 or something. No, that isn't the case. I still think it's going to be a really close tie. But I just think that Real Madrid are going to be the ones to go through. But don't be surprised to see it very, very close, man. A close tie, serious.
I'm with you. I always say this about Real Madrid, and especially under Carlo Ancelotti. This is a team that almost enjoys suffering. Like they almost like take their foot off the gas and play at their own third gear. And then when they really need to kind of get urgent and win a game, that's when they all of a sudden can just flick a switch. So I could almost see them playing with their food with Liverpool a bit. And I look at Liverpool's midfield in particular. I know Thiago hasn't been great this season, but I think at minimum he's been average. You don't even have him the next 4 weeks. You're going to be seeing Henderson, Naby Keita, and Bayetic, which against Bruce, Modric, Tchouameni, Dani Ceballos, like that's gulfs in quality in my opinion. I really
Modric loves these games though. Modric and Cruz, they live for these. They literally live for these. So
they're gonna accrue like 150, 200 touches. You remember that Rodri game for Spain in the World Cup where he had like 250 touches or something like that? That's gonna be Modric and Cruz, bro. It's gonna be doing 1-2s to each other 5 yards away. I think Real Madrid will win this quite comfortably, bro. And I know how you said, Cam, this is Liverpool, the end of their season if they lose. It feels like United under Moyes that 1 year where we played Bayern and like we were 8th in the league or something like that. And then all of our heads were like, this can be the we win it and we go through. That's what I feel about it.
That's a good one. That's pretty much like the same thing. Yeah, but I didn't think about that midfield, I'll be honest. Didn't realize Thiago was injured for 4 weeks.
Yeah.
That midfield is absolutely crazy. And yeah, surely there's absolutely no way Modric and Cruz can be on a losing team to that type of midfield. So yeah, I gotta go Real Madrid. But listen, Mo Salah, hey, you better deliver too, man. This ain't a free hit. Better rise.
Let me ask you this, Adrian. I think we all agree that Real Madrid will be going through the next round. But going forward for this team, how concerned are you against potential opposition like Manchester City, for example, or I don't know, Bayern or PSG? Do you still have that fate that something like last season can happen, or do you think that kind of run is maybe a step too far for this iteration of the team?
I think that it's a step too far personally, because I think that when you meet a team like Bayern or a team like City, I don't think that lightning will strike twice for Real Madrid and they'll get that last minute equalizer, go on to win the game type thing. It doesn't feel like everything's sort of connecting for them as it did last season. It's not Benzema in Ballon d'Or form. It's not Vinicius who's tearing up every right back in the world. It's a little bit different. You know, the midfield is not quite there yet. Is Tchouameni, I don't even know, is Tchouameni even healthy at the moment, or is he out for a few more weeks?
He might be out, actually, honestly.
I think he might be out for a few more weeks. There's no Casemiro in that midfield either, which I think people underestimate the effect that has had on this team and how he, not only on the pitch, what he did for them, but off the pitch in the locker room, that kind of thing. One of the leaders that is now gone. So I think that Real Madrid going forward, they won't have that sort of magic to them. But for this tie, I mean, you want to talk about heritage and ghost stories. I think it's Liverpool's lost or they haven't won in 6 attempts against Real Madrid at this point. It's bad. They've got their number.
Bullied. They bully them, man. They really, really bully them. So it's like what Bayern have been doing to Barcelona lately. Do you know what I mean? So they found their favorite victims. They're gonna keep at it. So it's
last time they won was 2009 when they beat them 4-0 at Anfield.
Yeah, what a game, man. That was a classic, man. Gerrard, Torres, the center, flipping out.
Anfield Knights.
What a madness.
So I think we all agree Real Madrid going on to the next round. I want to tailgate it, not so much to the bigger games. Well, maybe in Adrian's eyes, it might be the biggest game of this entire round. But Benfica versus Club Brugge. And I mean, I kind of opened up the show by saying, for me, the two hottest teams in this competition.
Wake up.
The two hottest teams in this competition are the non-traditional ones. We're going to talk about Napoli later, but the other one has been Benfica. And I'm going to let you really take the reins on this one because I know you've been watching them, but their form has been absolutely tremendous this year. You were telling us off camera that they've only lost one game all season. They went undefeated in the Champions League with Juventus and PSG, which is brilliant for them. There has been the recent sale of Enzo Fernandez, which I'm sure you'll be wanting to tell us about. But how confident are you about this Benfica team, not just for this tie against Club Brugge, because I think rightfully so you are the favorites, but going forward in this competition, how much faith do you have in this team?
A lot, a lot. I mean, losing Enzo Fernandez is huge. That's a world-class talent that you can't just replace out of nowhere, right? It's pretty impossible to do so. The fact that we even had him at Benfica was crazy, and we all knew that we'd lose him eventually at the end of the season. January, it turned out, but that's okay. The way Roger Schmidt has this team playing is crazy. We've lost 2 games all season, both of them to Brugge, one in the league, one in the cup. One of them was a loss that was in a shootout when we were a man down from the 30th minute onward. So you can't really have too many high expectations there. But going up against Club Brugge, if you'd asked me in maybe October when they went 4 matches without conceding a goal, beating Atletico Madrid, Porto, Leverkusen, I'd be a little bit more nervous, but they've fallen off hard. And now I think it's Scott Parker as their manager. And he stopped the bleeding a little bit, but it's just like draw for them. So I think that coming into this, I think Benfica supporters are pretty confident with how the team has been playing. We have Rafa coming back. We have Gonzalo Ramos maybe coming. I mean, that dude, I can't trust that dude to ever be healthy anymore. I'm getting sick of Gonzalo Ramos and all these injuries, man. But no, just in general, João Mario's flying. Chiquinho's done pretty well as a replacement for Enzo Fernandez in the midfield, and I think that I think it's going to be fun, man. Benfica has been decent in the Champions League these days. Even going to last season, that run they went on, going up against Liverpool. You know, Darwin almost scored a couple towards the end of that game against Liverpool where it could have changed things. It could have been a different result there. But yeah, I think that going up against Brugge, respect to him, but I think that Benfica is going to go through. And beyond Napoli, I mean, at this point, I don't expect Benfica to win the Champions League, right? So whoever we get in the next round, I don't really care because I think that it's going to be a good test to sort of see where we're at legitimately. Has it just been a fluke run or what have you? I don't think so, but everyone's saying like, oh, Napoli, Benfica, they're the dark horses for this tournament, that kind of thing. If we were to go up against Napoli, I think it could get ugly. But other than that, as so long as we don't get a German team, because we cannot beat German teams, I think that we'll accept any challenge, basically.
I like it. You obviously have some big talent in this team. Enzo obviously is no longer there, but you just mentioned Gonzalo Ramos. You have Silva in the back, really promising Portuguese center back there. You have Florentino Luis. Who's the player? It could be one of the 3 that I just named, or it could be someone I didn't even name yet. Who's the player that you would like to tell our viewers? We don't get many Benfica fans on this channel. Who's one guy that you would tell our viewers to really look out for? Like he might be getting a big move to one of their favorite European teams. Who's one to look out for?
I think that the most obvious choice at this moment would be, Grimaldo on a free could be something that happens this summer, which he's been playing out of his mind this season, scoring free kicks for fun, scoring from distance, setting up play. He was combining well with Enzo. But I think as far as the next big thing sort of from our academy or what have you, people are going to look at Gonzalo Ramos, but I think Antonio Silva and his ceiling, the way that he stepped in when we had an injury crisis, played next to Otamendi and looked as comfortable as can be, like I said, was pocketing those PSG attackers like it was no issue. You know, against Juventus, he's squaring up to all the players. Like he just has no fear. And I think that as far as good center backs who are just solid, he's not like crazy going to go roaming forward or have a wide array of passes, but just a solid defender that reads the game well and is great in the tackle and is very mature for his age, just turned 19 recently. I think that he's the one that's going to be the next big sale for Benfica.
Brilliant. We do have a super chat here. Michael Talks Football says, what if Buchanan knocks out Benfica? Buchanan is obviously a Canadian player. I think he just was he with Brugge before the World Cup, or did he recently join them? Yeah. I actually, people were asking me who's one player to look out for from Team Canada outside of Davies and Jonathan David, and I said this is the guy to watch out for. Had a pretty decent World Cup. Couldn't be too bad then if they knock you out and he scores a hat trick at the Stade de Luz, bro.
No, I don't want to see that. I'm not here for that. I don't care about that. I hope that look, I wish him well. I hope that he doesn't, embarrass himself out there, but it has to be Benfica going through it, not at the expense of Buchanan of all players, man.
and Cam, Scott Parker, of course, is the new man, Club Brugge, which I think when you talk about luckiest guys on the planet, being relegated with Fulham, probably would have had Bournemouth going down at the rate they were at, and now managing in the Champions League. What do you think about that, bro?
Happy for the lad, mate. You know what I mean? Well, Adrian, are you Canadian as well? Yeah, so I gotta represent for my Brits, mate. You know what I mean? Gotta represent for my Brits. Shout out Scotty, man. You know what I mean? I'm praying Club Brugge get the dub in this tie. I'm hoping they do. Do you know what I mean? A Champions League dub for Scott Parker, real men. You know what I mean? He's been about Charlton, Chelsea, Newcastle. Hey, the days, man. Scott Parker, proper West Ham. Yeah, that's a proper Englishman right there. You
Real
know?
men. Is he real men?
Oh, 100%. Played with his shirt tucked in, clattered every 50-50, captain of his teams. Listen, I'm representing for Scott Parker. I am Club Brugge fan for this tie. I'm sorry, Adrian. I'm Club Brugge. I don't even know who plays for Club Brugge. I ain't seen their squad. They were looking
Noah Lang plays for them.
Who?
Noah Lang.
No, like, see, fake Neymar, we will run with that. You know what I mean? I don't know how Scott Parker's doing with him, but we'll run with that one. So, yeah, man. Listen, Benfica, obviously, they're probably the favourites, but don't let Scotty get his first Champions League dub on your head, you know, Adrian. I'll be in your mentions, bro. Good luck to them, man. Good luck to them.
Oh, my God. I got Benfica going through this tie easily as well. Adrian, I'm assuming the same.
Yeah. Benfica for me, for sure.
Okay, and then we got a Club Brugge representative on the bottom.
Yes, sir.
Next up, and again, we talk about one team that's in blistering form. Let's go to the team that might be the most blistering form in the entire world at the moment. That's Napoli as they take on Frankfurt. Man, I know Cam has a video coming out on Wednesday about, for him, the most informed player in Europe. But right behind him, I mean, obviously, just to spoiler guys, for him it's Rashford, but just behind him has to be Victor Osimhen. And that duo, that partnership that he struck up with Kvaratskhelia has been outstanding. I keep joking about it. It's like Shaq and Kobe 2.0. But you look throughout the team, right? I know those two are stealing the headlines, but they are exemplary everywhere, guys. The defense, the way they have replaced Koulibaly, who despite how poor he's been this year, was a talisman for that team, with Kim Min-jae, who stepped in and played brilliantly. You look at that midfield three of Anguissa, Lobotka, Zielinski. You have guys like Elmas and Ndombele coming in. All throughout this team, Spalletti has Napoli balling, bro. They were unbelievable in the Champions League group stage. Smoked Liverpool in Naples. They've smoked every team they come up against practically in the Serie A. Frankfurt has to be a favorable draw for them. I'm looking past that, man. I know people are probably labeling them the dark horses because of how good they're being, but realistically, you look at how poor most of the traditional big teams in Europe are right now. If I'm a Napoli fan, I'm licking my lips at any team that I'm coming up against, man. Honestly, I think they're that good.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. You try to think of any team that would easily beat them. There's none. You try to think of any team that will give them a really good match. There's a few. But I don't know if Eintracht Frankfurt is that team right now. But like you said, Lobotka, good. Rachmani in defense as well as alongside Kim Min-jae. And then they also have the depth as well. Gio Simeone has been one of the best sort of low-key depth signings. Seems like whenever he comes on, he's saving them. They just trashed Juve 5-1 a couple of weeks ago. It's just easy for them. You watch that whole left side, the way they build out from the back. It's like me in FIFA 14 back in the day. Just one touch triangles all the way up the pitch, and then Kvaratskhelia just stepping inside an R1 circle and it's in. So I don't know. I worry for Eintracht Frankfurt a little bit. I know that you can't sleep on them necessarily. They did go all the way to the Europa League final and win it. They have a decent defense to them, and their attack with Kolo Muani and Daichi Kamada can be scary on its day. Kolo Muani is playing incredibly well. Last I checked, he was at like 14 goals, 14 assists from 28 appearances or something like that. So you can't sleep on Eintracht Frankfurt, but you also, I just can't see Napoli losing at this point. They're just that team. How many goals do they score against Ajax and Liverpool alone? You know, they're getting like double digits at that point. It's I don't know. I can't think of a team where I worry for Napoli when they come up against them at this moment. I don't know.
The form they're in is crazy. And just to speak briefly on Frankfurt before I pass it on to Cam, I mean, they were lucky themselves, in my opinion, to even make it this far. You look at that group that they were in with Spurs, Marseille, and Lisbon, and that final day, it seemed like every 5 minutes there was a different standing of that table. 1 second Spurs were going down, Marseille were top of the group, then all of a sudden Frankfurt, it was switching up like crazy. So Frankfurt will feel fortunate to be in this. I like the point about Kolo Muani. I know Cam is a big fan of him, but it's going to be a massive ask for Frankfurt to beat them, right, Cam?
Yeah, I mean that's a big ask. I just out of that tie, I just want to see Kolo Muani, announce himself in a way like, listen, that he said that pain of missing that chance that Emi Martinez saved, that iconic now image of Emi Martinez saving that. The other guy on the other side of that image is Kolo Muani. You know what I mean? He said that's going to live inside his mind forever. That pain will never go away. So listen, when I hear things like that, it makes me think you've got you want to prove to, you're going to want to prove to people, you're going to have that chip on your shoulder that, listen, I'm still a good player. I'm not just going to be remembered as the guy who bottled the World Cup final. Do you know what I mean? And since then, he's been firing, man. He's been firing. So I hope he can do something. Napoli now on the other side are fantastic at the moment. They're probably one of the 4 best clubs in the world at this present time. But I do think this whole, I think they're the favorites and all of that. I don't see that personally. I think it's too early for Napoli. I think there's going to come a tie where we're going to expect Napoli to win it and they're just not going to. Or they're going to come up against a team with the heritage, with the know-how, and they're going to get them out of there, in my opinion. Like, I'm impressed with them every time I watch Napoli. As Adrian said, bro, like, it's like champagne football, like, but in a different way. It's so fast, so dynamic. It's crazy, bro. People are moving in different areas, and then of course you got the explosiveness of Osimhen and just the trickery of Kvara. So the link up is great. Everything about, in Lies terms, what's not to like about Napoli right now? You know what I mean? What is not to like? But I do think, I don't know, maybe, okay, they didn't have anything to play for against Liverpool in that tie, but it's just the way Liverpool just went and beat them that I was like, is one of these big teams, when they really want it, just going to come up and beat you guys when they really need to do it? So that just gave me a little bit of doubt. But yeah, like, listen, the dark horses never end up winning it, guys. That's the problem. They never do. The Dortmunds, they don't do it. Atletico Madrid, they don't do it. They just never end up doing it. So as much as Napoli are a great team and it's going to be enjoyable to watch them, and I would love to see Osimhen lead them to a Champions League final, whatever, I do think that once they get one of these proper big teams with the heritage, with the name, they're going to go out of the tournament. So, but yeah, I expect them to go through against Frankfurt. But hey, listen, don't let Kolo Muani get onto you guys, man. Serious. Don't let it happen.
I was going to say, Adrian, you brought up a good point about Simeone, because I was actually looking at Osimhen's stats the other day when me and Cam were kind of comparing him versus Rashford. And the one competition I realized where he hasn't really taken over is the Champions League. And it's actually because he's only played 3 games in the group stage. Giovanni Simeone was playing a lot of those games and actually performing really well. So I think that's another storyline here. Osimhen has been so good in Serie A. Can he now take it to the next level against Europe's premier? Like we said, we expect them to beat Frankfurt quite easily, in my opinion. What's he going to do now if he comes up against Real Madrid, or whether they come up against City or PSG or Bayern? What will he do at that level, at that platform? Because then really we're hearing £100+ million for a player like that. If he starts banging it on the best teams in the world, De Laurentiis might throw another 0 at the end of that price tag, man. It could be crazy. Anything to add, Adrian?
Yeah, yo, sorry. I was looking at his stats because he's just been in crazy form, I believe. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 matches in a row where he's scored in Serie A. If he takes that to Champions League as well, like it could get ugly. It could get ugly for other teams. But yeah, that depth that they have, Simeone, Raspadori as well, another dude who comes in and can put in a job. I think that he scored a couple of goals with Simeone against Ajax in one of those games where they scored 6 or whatever it was against them. But Osimhen, and the form that he's been in lately, because I think he was injured at the beginning of the season, wasn't he?
Yeah,
he had a decent injury where he wasn't. It took him a while to get back into it, and even then, his scoring record in Serie A was crazy. So now that he's actually been playing and he has that continuity, I mean, I fear for Eintracht Frankfurt at this moment.
We all got Napoli then progressing to this time.
Yeah, we gotta go Napoli with this one, man. You've got to go. If they get knocked out, then
shambolic. The Lies jinx will hit again next time. Chelsea versus Borussia Dortmund. Dortmund, I think the news from them recently, outside of how really good they've been in the last 8 games, I think they're unbeaten. But of course, the Signal Iduna Park will, I think, officially be open for 80,000 people in the Champions League. Normally, that ground is stopped at 60,000. They're letting another 20,000 in. We know that atmosphere is crazy, especially on European nights. On the flip side, Chelsea, I think, haven't won a game in like 8 away games. The difference in form between both of these two teams, Chelsea, 5 league wins since September is the most astounding one. But to give them credit as well, in the Champions League, they have taken care of business, albeit against a weak Milan team and Salzburg and Dynamo Kiev. It isn't the most terrifying of opposition, but as anyone who supports Chelsea, they're going to want to hear any kinds of positive news they can get. There isn't much to give them at this point. Adrian, looking at these two teams, do you edge at Chelsea because, I mean, naturally they're the bigger team, or is Dortmund, they got something for them?
I think that is too early with this Chelsea team to really back them in games like this, especially against a Borussia Dortmund team that has been improving so much. Edin Terzic has made some changes, especially, just the recruitment at the back, because that's always sort of the ongoing criticism of Dortmund is how they defend. It always comes back to bite them. But the recruitment at the back and bringing in Nico Schlotterbeck, who's killing it at Freiburg for a few seasons, as well as Sula as well, who's been doing well at Borussia Dortmund. Changing formation to play 3 at the back. They now have someone in front of that back line. And I mean, it was Chan recently, but Ozcan, a good defensive midfielder to cover that back line as well. They finally sort of have that part of their game figured out a little bit. And then, going forward, Jude Bellingham all over the place in that midfield, in that final third as well. Super, super, super contributing. Haller is back. They're looking scary. They're looking really scary. They even have another young Englishman coming on, that Bino Gittins kid.
He's
came
sick.
on and scored after a minute against Werder Bremen, I believe, this weekend. I think that with Chelsea, the recruitment's crazy, of course. They're a team that you should be afraid of potentially in the future, but right now it just feels too early. Like we saw against West Ham this past weekend. There's good things and positives to take from the link up between Enzo and João Felix, but where was everyone else in that game? Mudryk barely showed up. Where was everybody else in that Chelsea lineup? And I think going away to Signal Iduna Park, I didn't even know they were opening it up to 80. That's crazy. I already thought it was going to be difficult because it's a difficult ground to go to at the best of times. But with that kind of atmosphere, with the form that Borussia Dortmund's in, I think that Borussia Dortmund can beat this Chelsea side for sure.
Absolutely. Cam, we've seen with Chelsea in the past where they've gone through really tough league seasons, but out of nowhere, they go hire a manager, and 6 months later, they're lifting the Champions League. We've seen it with Di Matteo. We've seen it with Thomas Tuchel. Do you give Graham Potter any hope that he can make it a hat trick and replicate that?
Not this time. I mean, the other times when we've seen like Di Matteo and Tuchel, there was a real upturn in their form regardless. I'm trying to say the form instantly changed. They went and won the Champions League, whatever. But we've had Graham Potter for quite a long time now. It's not like a new manager bounce. Oh, this is the competition we're focusing on. This is their manager. You know what I mean? This is their manager going for a long time, or meant to be a long time. And he's been there for quite a while. And this team are playing way worse and just don't have the characters, in my opinion, that the Tuchel team had, for example, like a Kante and all that type of stuff. Jorginho in his, probably you would say his prime and stuff. Then you look at the other team. They had Lampard and all these type of guys, Drogba. But this one, it just seems like a disjointed team. Can't catch a win. 2 wins in their last 13. No identity on the pitch. New signings. They had to take out what's his name? Sorry, Badiashile is not in the squad. Who's actually formed a great partnership with Thiago Silva, and now they're probably gonna have to bring in Koulibaly, who was absolutely out of sorts before Badiashile basically replaced him, and now he's not even got the match sharpness. That's a scary blend right there, bro. That's a very, very worrying blend to have, because Fofana's not back, I believe. So I'm sure the only option right now would be Koulibaly. So I kind of worry for Chelsea in this respect. And then he's got no Champions League experience. Tuchel did. Look, the Di Matteo thing, I'm telling you, that was pure. Drogba put some mad judge in the air and they done something, because he was giving away 2 penalties. John Terry was getting red cards. Them men just willed themselves through. It was pure will. no tactic, just will. You know what I mean? So Tuchel's was brilliant, absolute brilliant coaching, but he had just gone to a Champions League final. I think maybe it was the year before. So great manager, very good manager. But this Potter experiment, this Potter situation is just not moving. I just don't see them doing anything long term in the Champions League. But with this tie, it's a very interesting one, because I do think that Dortmund just always flatter to deceive. I might be being a little bit harsh, but I do think they do flatter to deceive. So I'm gonna back Dortmund, because you just said the thing about the 80,000, bro. They're gonna have that black and yellow. It's gonna look absolutely unreal. It's already a mad stadium, one stadium that I need to go to in my lifetime. But to then go up against a Chelsea team who are basically on their knees, I'm gonna have to go with Dortmund to proceed in this tie, man. Like, Chelsea have got the 2CL kind of heritage vibe a little bit, but I think Dortmund will do this one, man. Jude Bellingham, a English team. I've seen him play against Man City like 3-4 times. Every single one was quality, bro. He was quality. So maybe he sees that as an opportunity to, like, hey, you Englishmen, bro. Like, I'm a big dog out here. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So
you're gonna make a Bully about to drop 150 on him after this time, bro.
Yeah, literally. So I'm gonna go with them. But listen, Enzo, hey, don't tell me you left Benfica to go to Chelsea and then Benfica go further than you. We'll be talking, trust me, bro. We'll have conversations. I'm telling you now. But yeah, man, Chelsea, they got to do it. Looking forward to see. Well, they got to do it, but I think Dortmund will do it. But I'm looking forward to still seeing like Felix and these guys in a bigger stage. You know what I mean? They're playing against Fulham. They're playing against West Ham, looking nice. But to see them in a high pressure moments, it will be even better. So looking forward to seeing it. But yeah, man, Dortmund for me.
I'll be looking forward to also seeing the return of Sebastian Haller, who, of course, recently has come back from cancer. He's actually doing pretty well, to be honest with you. Yeah, he's scoring goals. He's playing pretty well. And I love the Bellingham shout as well. I've always been a little iffy on Bellingham, and I stand by my original statement that I believe his best work comes in the final third, where he's allowed to express himself and create chances. And this year, I feel like he's taking just another step, man. Like, his improvement year by year keeps getting, it's just very impressive. Adrian, do you have Dortmund in this tie, or do you have Chelsea?
Yeah, I got Dortmund. That, like I was saying, this Chelsea team is just too early right now. There's no like coherent game plan from them. I don't really know what they want to be. They signed a whole new team basically. It's too much at once and too soon for them to take on. It's what, on the 15th in 2 days to take on this Borussia Dortmund side in front of 80,000 people. I can't see it.
Listen, Chelsea must though. They listen. What else are they playing for? Another team. What are you playing for? You're not making top 4. You're out of every single cup competition. You must do it. You know what I'm trying to say? You must do it. And as you said, Lies, the other two guys have done it. Potter, you ain't free from this.
He's right.
You ain't free from this one. You must do it. You must. There's a lot of teams that have a lot of pressure on them, and Chelsea is actually one of them. You know what I mean? It's actually one of them. A lot of Chelsea fans talk like it's a free hit season in a way. Like, oh yeah, next season. I am telling you right now, well, you're already seeing Chelsea fans change their tune, but I'm telling you right now, they go out of the Champions League and have nothing to play for, and they're still not winning games. His P45 is coming, man. He's going to get sacked, bro. These guys think, bro, I don't know what these guys expect, man, honestly. So this is for his job, in my opinion.
You say, Cam, that they must. I actually think that they will. I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think Chelsea are going to win this tie. I don't like the Badiashile decision, even though I understand it, right? Like, Mudryk is the big signing. Enzo is the big signing, so they have to be there. And Felix, they're trying to convince him to sign, so they have to bring him in there. But unless Wes Fofana comes back quick and also comes back healthy, because first of all, he's injury prone, and B, he's been out for a long time. How good is he going to be when he returns? I really like the way Badiashile is playing, but I just have a feeling, man, and maybe it's like old school Chelsea, and I'm relying too much on that memory, but it would just be so Chelsea for me to flop the league and just still do it in Europe. Maybe I'm nostalgic here, but I think they're going to get it done. We got 2 more games left to speak about. We're going to jump over to Manchester City versus RB Leipzig. City are such an interesting team for me, honestly, this year. They're one of the most confusing, in my opinion, because for most teams, I look at them and I can understand what needs to be fixed. But with this City team, to this day, I still can't understand where the problem is. Like, it's a very weird situation for me. But this is really why they bought Erling Haaland for. to win them the Champions League. Like, this is ultimately what it all comes down to. And if they are to eventually lose this league title, which I still believe Arsenal will win, they must win the Champions League. Bring back that must word. Bar maybe PSG, they have the most pressure on them, in my opinion, for this tournament. And Erling Haaland, we'll see if he's the one to do it, because his record in the Champions League is frightening. And then obviously on the other end, you got RB Leipzig, who I feel like at this point, we all really know what they are. They're going to be a team that can potentially be a banana slip for a lot of the big teams. They do pretty well in the Bundesliga. But me personally, I don't know how you guys feel about this. I think this is going to be a comprehensive City win. I think they'll win this.
I thought I was on that RB Leipzig Marco Rosa hype earlier last week, but then this weekend they lose at home against Union Berlin. Things are changing, because my thinking was, what's going to happen with Man City? This was prior to me seeing how they played this weekend. And even this weekend, they played really well in that first half against Villa. Second half, a little bit different, because I was wondering how they're going to react to this potential sanctions that they won't even see for years, or punishment, I should say, that they probably won't even see for years, if we're being honest. But when Juventus heard about their -15 hit, they had a dip in form immediately. It affected the players. It affected how they were playing. So I was thinking maybe with Leipzig, this 18-match unbeaten run that they were on, coming up against a Manchester City team that might be a little bit more mentally fragile, who knows what's going to happen there. So I actually had RB Leipzig going through, but I don't know anymore. I don't know if I can trust Marco Rosa anymore.
You had Leipzig going through.
Yeah. I had RB Leipzig going through. Yes. The way that they're playing, the way that they were playing in the Bundesliga, the way that they were playing in the Champions League, I thought that this was going to be the biggest surprise of the round of 16. Was I, Pep big braining it a little bit? Hey, maybe I was doing that. But no, that 18-match unbeaten run, they were looking good. And Kunku, all these guys in the attack, Leimer's playing crazy in the midfield. I thought maybe they could get something done against the Manchester City side if the news of the potential punishments could affect them more, but I don't know. Now I'm thinking that City will probably find a way through against this Leipzig side.
Yeah, I think with this tie, I think it's a straightforward one, man. I think Man City are gonna get in, get out. You know what I mean? I think they'll be actually score quite a few goals. I don't know what people in the comments might be able to say. Chat might be able to say, what's Haaland's record against like a Leipzig or something? Because I know he bullies every German team, so I'm sure he's
bullied Leipzig in the past as well. I think last year he had the winner in the cup. Yeah, he's a problem for them.
Yeah. I mean, this is the one that I think you should be straightforward. I mean, if Man City go out to Leipzig, there needs to be serious questions about what is going on at Man City and this Europe situation. Maybe I'm underestimating Leipzig a little bit, but I'm just used to them being a team that let in quite a few goals. And Man City, I think they will turn up for this moment. I think they will turn up for this this Champions League. I expect them to get to at least maybe the semis. Man City, so I think it's going to be straightforward. Haaland will get on the score sheet. KDB is great in Europe. Mahrez is actually a great third act in Europe as well. I fancy them to win comfortably this one, man. Do I expect them to go win the Champions League? It's so hard to predict who will actually win the tournament, but I do expect them to dispatch with Leipzig pretty easily.
Interesting. Adrian, I'm gonna guess then, based on what you said, you've swayed back to Manchester City then?
No, look, this is a question like you before. This is a question of integrity, and I'll stick with my original. I'll stick with my original. I'm gonna back Leipzig in this one. You can pull it off. Look, Marco Rosa did really, really well prior to Borussia Dortmund. He was one of the more sought after managers. I don't know about in all of Europe, but definitely in the Bundesliga. He went to Gladbach. It wasn't great, but it was pretty decent at times. And now he's sort of got his mojo back at RB Leipzig, seemingly. I saw someone say that Union's sort of a bogey team for RB Leipzig. We'll see. Maybe that was just a little hiccup after that 18-match unbeaten run where they had 14 wins and 4 draws. We'll see. I think that people underestimate them a little bit. And City haven't been the City of old, but we'll see. Most likely City are going to take this, but I'm sticking with Leipzig to do it. They're going to do it.
Fair enough. I think you're insane, to be fair, but I got Manchester City going through in this tie. I got Man City. I think Cam is frozen on this or something, so we'll see when he gets back. The final tie is Inter Milan versus FC Porto. And think this is again the ties look so different to how they were before the World Cup, in my opinion. Because before the World Cup, Inter were one of those teams that under Inzaghi looked to be going really nowhere, in my opinion. But since then, Lautaro, of all people, has returned from international duty like a man on a mission. He looks like the Lautaro that led them to the league title a few seasons ago, Lukaku. Inter look really good, in my opinion. Porto, maybe you can give me more of an eye on them because obviously you watch Liga NOS quite regularly. But I fancy Inter. And to be honest with you, I'm back on the Inter hype train. Everyone who knows me knows I got a little bit of a soft spot for Inter anyways. But I think they can do something, and not just in this game, but potentially in this competition. I feel like they could be one of those banana peels for a big team.
Inter, you're saying, or Porto?
Inter. I mean, it's probably crazy, but I like Inter, man.
I mean, Inter's weird. They're so weird. Like you said, they started off kind of strange this season, but they still finished ahead of Barcelona in the Champions League. And then you look at Porto, and they're one of those teams that just like, they're nasty. Like Pepe is the perfect embodiment of Porto. You know, they're going to be nasty. They're going to be stepping on you. They're going to be frustrating the hell out of you. They're going to make you angry. They're going to make you hate them. And then suddenly when you're all caught up and you've lost your head, they're going to put a couple of goals past you. So Porto with Conceição as the manager, I can never sleep on them. And we've seen what they've done in recent Champions League campaigns where they've taken out some teams, some decent teams as well. So I think that I honestly think that Porto, and usually I always bet against Porto, but they have been on an unbeaten run since end of October, I think, like October 20th or something like that. They haven't lost a game. They've just been playing excellent football. Do they get some favoritism in Portugal? We don't need to talk about that, but yes, definitely. I think that helps. But this Inter side, I have difficulties trusting them. You know, I think they lost to Empoli recently, was it? Something like that.
They're weird, man. They beat Napoli, they beat Milan, and then it's a weird team for me. But
you don't know what you're going to get with them. And I feel like FC Porto could sort of be the kryptonite for them in some ways. And I'm telling you, this Porto team, you can't really sleep. As much as I would like to talk down on them and say like, nah, they're going to get trashed by Inter, Conceição gets this team ready to run through brick walls. You know, he's one of the better managers that I've seen in a while. Tactically, he's no mastermind or anything like that. But as far as man management and the mentality that he imparts on his entire squad, it's something else. They're absolute warriors. And then you have Tricky Taremi, who's going to be out there winning penalties and everything like that. So another very quality player. I think that Porto, I know that I'm seeming like I'm the surprise upset guy coming off of that Leipzig prediction, but I think that Porto Inter, it's not as cut and dry as a lot of people think. I think that Porto's really, really going to give them a tough time.
Just before I go to Cam, honestly, the more I think about it, right, Portugal has the big three in Portugal have three really, really good managers, and Roger Schmidt, Ruben Amorim, and Conceição. Like those are three really promising young managers, man. Fair enough. Cam, what do you think about this time, man? I know you weren't too hot on Inter the first half of the season. I was telling Adrian before you left that recently, I think since the World Cup, them and particularly Lautaro Martinez is really back in good form. But where do you sit on this one?
I'm actually gonna back with what Adrian said, and I'm going for Porto. You know, I'm going for Porto in this one. I think Porto are pretty solid. I think they're a pretty solid outfit. You know what I mean? They haven't conceded much goals in the league. Yes, again, people might say Premier League or whatever, but I think they're quite solid. Pepe is still looking as young as ever. I'm sure he scored the other day. He scored the other day, right? He scored. Was it the winner? Pepe, I think it might have been anyway.
They have two Pepes, so I think it was the other one that scored.
It's 10.5. Okay, cool. So, but he's solid. He's solid. He's still going to be doing his thing defensively. I just think as well, every single time I do catch Porto, I'm not going to act like I'm a Porto connoisseur, like I watch them regularly, but every single time I see them, they're actually decent, bro. They're actually decent to watch. They're actually a decent team. They're rugged as well. I'm a big fan of Taremi since the World Cup. I'm not going to say I was familiar with his game, but in the World Cup, I was like, yo, this guy is decent, bro. And I looked at his record. He's doing very, very well at Porto. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he's going to do. And yeah, man, the Dragão historically has actually always been quite a tough stadium to go to, bro. You know what I mean? So I'm going to go with, and I'm just not a fan of Inter Milan. I don't think they're that good. Lautaro hype. Hype. I'm not really moving. I like Barella, but not really a big fan of Inter. So I'm actually going to go Porto to go through in this one.
Fair enough. I'm guessing you said, do you agree, Adrian? You got Porto going through as well.
Yeah. And just one last thing with Porto. I think they lost their opening 2 matches in their group, and then they went on to win the rest of them, all 4 of them, against Atletico, Leverkusen, and Brugge, who had fallen off by that point. But still, these guys, just the mentality of this team is crazy. They aren't afraid of anyone. I think that Porto are going to shock Inter.
I'm going to go with Inter. Also, for one point that I didn't bring up, Inzaghi, for me, in cup competitions, I think this is his bread and butter. Not just in the Champions League, because even in the cups, he's had success with Lazio before. He's had success with Inter. And in the Champions League last year, I remember the game against Liverpool. I know they lost both of those, but it wasn't due to a lack of poor tactics or poor effort. They just had less quality. I think Inzaghi in these 2-legged ties and these knockout competitions, he knows his stuff. So I'm going to go with Inter Milan. I got Inter going through. So I think that's really the 8 ties of this fixture, of this round of 16, guys. We went through all of them, gave you the main storylines, players to watch, our predictions for all of them. If you guys are just catching the stream just at the end, make sure you go and watch the full thing, because we got comprehensive breakdowns on all of this from Adrian himself, who, like I said at the beginning of the show, he knows his European stuff. I gave him a huge pedestal, made him rise to the challenge, and he absolutely did. He smashed it. Adrian, thank you so much for joining us here on FTVL. You're welcome whenever you want, honestly, because we're all about good football content here, and you definitely bring it.
No, thank you, man. Thank you, man. I'm usually not a live stream discussion guy. I'm the video essay, so I'm a little bit out of position, but this was super fun. So thank you for having me, guys. Thank you.
No,
Absolutely.
Nice having you as well, man, for sure. But who you got as a winner for the whole tournament? Have you thought about that yet, or you just kind of waiting?
Yeah, I haven't thought that far ahead, but I would love to see Napoli win it if it's not Benfica, which it's not going to be Benfica. But no, I think I don't know how many times I've said both either PSG or Man City, like, oh, this is their year, and they never seem like I can't trust these guys anymore. I honestly think that Bayern is going to start to really pick up. I think that bringing in João Cancelo really fixes an area of the pitch, that right back position that they had been hurting for a while. So I think that Bayern is really going to pick up with Musiala, Gnabry, Coman. They're all playing super well. Choupo-Moting can't stop scoring. I think that they're going to just continue on and probably be the favorites, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Guys, I left Adrian's channel in the description. Obviously, he's tagged in the title, so make sure you go check out all of this stuff. Make sure you guys subscribe to FTVL, of course. Like, share, subscribe. We got a huge couple of weeks coming up, not just with Champions League, but content in general. Every day we're coming at you with something new, so make sure that you guys are sticking around, sharing this with your friends, and letting people know that this is the place to be. Yo, it's been myself, Lyes. I've been joined, of course, by CultureCams and Rabona TV.
Yes.
See you when we see you. Peace.